character has stuff in common with you, are they a Mary Sue? The short answer is no. That's it. That's the video. You can leave now. Please don't leave. I mean, they might still be a Mary Sue, but it's not gonna be because they share your love of crochet or puppies. I'd like to point out that I'm using Sue as a gender-neutral term here. For the purpose of this video, and indeed all my videos, the Sue implies the stew. I've had some comments down the years along the lines of, so this character is just you, right? Thanks for assuming point blank I suck at creating characters and have no imagination, but no! Like, look at these characters. Look at them. They're all clearly just me wearing different hats. To be fair, some characters will be heavily based on the author because they want to relate a very personal experience they had, and they had that experience because of who they are and what they have done in their life. That doesn't mean they lack creativity or that the character is a Sue, it just means that that's the character that was needed to tell that story. And generally when I have a character with something in common with me, there's a reason for it. The whole deal with Lucinda's story is that she gets a job dressing up as a prince and fighting dragons and stuff, so I kinda needed someone who's into that. A weeb who's into cosplay seems to me a better choice than, say, a jock girl into football who thinks YA is stupid and has plenty of friends where she lives, just doesn't have the right motivation to get into the situation that Lucinda gets herself into. Will loves traveling and reading. He's been to Japan, all things that we have in common. If he was an introvert, stay-at-home basement dweller, which also somehow describes me, then he wouldn't be in Fairyland. I had him go to Japan because A, he just thinks it's cool. Sometimes characters just like stuff, like they are frequently their own people. I mean, I didn't mean for him to end up with Tyrion, but here we are. And B, there's a bunch of yokai there. It's a fact of my lore that yokai travel between Earth and the other worlds for their jobs, or to emigrate, or to visit family, and because Fairyland has a chunk of yokai living there, so his chances of finding a door to Fairyland and getting info on Fairyland are way higher than anywhere else. Plus the simple fact that I myself lived in Japan for a total of 13 months, and Japanese language and culture was my major. I don't have to research Japan because I already did. You'll find a bunch of references to Japan in my work because I am pretty comfortable writing about Japan. It's part of my experience. I'd have to do a ton of research to get anywhere close to writing as authentically about countries I've never been to, like France or Egypt. What do you want me to do? Pretend Japan and anime don't exist? Go back in time and do a different language degree? I'd still have dyslexia, it wouldn't help. Anyway, also Tyrion enjoys reading and writing, different genres to me, but obviously those are two very important things in my life. I assume since you're watching this, you also like reading and writing? What a small world this is that the only 5 people on the planet who enjoy reading and writing stories have found my video. Partly he writes because he's royal, and historically royals and nobles were the only ones who could, aside from monks whose main use of their writing ability was to copy out illustrated manuscripts and write Geoffrey of Monmouth King Arthur fanfiction. Quite a lot of otherworlders enjoy reading because although all the common folk can read, with the odd exception, there's no TV or internet, so books are their main form of entertainment. Going back to Will, another thing Will has in common with me is that he's taken a stand-up comedy course. I went to Logan Murray's and had an absolute blast. He also did a Laughing Horse one and had a blast. They are fun. And if you're preparing to be a fool or court jester, the old-timey equivalent of a stand-up comedian, that's kind of essential. So, I ended up doing that course because the cinema was on fire, which is a stand-up routine unto itself, but this was several years after Will's creation. I added in the he's gone to do a comedy course thing when I was writing the book, because, that's a good thing to do when you're trying to get a job, is to do things that will help you get the job. Another thing that happens with characters is that you get into stuff because your character likes it, and you have to research it because your character likes it, and then you sort of get into it, and people just assume that it's the other way around. Will is into Shakespeare, so I had to read a bunch of Shakespeare stuff, and I visited Stratford-upon-Avon, and I'm a little bit of a fan now myself. Not so much of the problematic stuff that he wrote, because that's yikes. But he has an interesting history, and Stratford's really cool. Some of his plays are quite funny, and they're an interesting little glimpse into the past. Anyway. But, I'm just trying to catch up with Will here, if your character likes something and you don't, you're gonna have to research it. If you're not a nerd and your nerd character calls Gandalf Anakin because you heard someone call Jedi space wizards once and got really confused, like, your audience is gonna notice. I don't need a million new hobbies, okay? So excuse me if my characters inherit a sphere of pop culture that's familiar to me. Plus, there's the simple fact that if I look at a character and go, okay, they can't have anything in common to me, what am I gonna do? So, let's see, they need to be a sports enthusiast who drinks and smokes and thinks women are trash and wants to be a star baseball player and has never picked up a book in their life. And suddenly I have a character I'm struggling to like or feel attached to because I've taken away anything that I can relate to. Having a character that you can relate to because they have similar likes and dislikes to you does not make them a Mary Sue. Unless your hobby is something awful or incredibly niche, guess what? Other people will relate to them too. You really shouldn't shy away from including your own experiences or loves just because some people jump to conclusions so easily. That's not what makes a Mary Sue. I personally like Red's definition from Overly Sarcastic Productions. Does the world bend around them? Does the plot bend around them? My friend also had a good definition. Basically, do they make us shout, unfair? Do they get away with things constantly or have people like them for no reason or get rewarded when they didn't earn it? It's a very complicated thing to define what a Mary Sue is or isn't, but it's definitely not defined by, well, you and your protagonist both own a Dalmatian, so there we have it. Have a good day, nerds!